Hey, I'm Chris Velasco.
And I'm Daryl Etherington.
And welcome to Fly or Die. Today we're taking a look at the Nvidia Shield. So, Daryl, we've had a bit of a discussion about this already. How do you feel about this thing?
Well, you know how I feel about this thing, because I wrote a whole article about it.
Yes, but let's elucidate your thoughts for the world.
Well, I love this thing. I think it's great. I was really expecting to not love this thing. I thought, why would you build this thing, Nvidia? Why would you do something like this? It seems foolish. It seems like you're building a strange hybrid animal that nobody loves. But in truth, I loved it.
So, Nvidia made a Liger, and you just really like Ligers.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. It's like that. It's not like they crossed an ostrich with a whale or something. Practical.
So let's really quickly take a look into the specs. Gerald, what's the Nvidia Shield have inside of it?
Okay, it's powered by an Nvidia Tegra 4 quad-core mobile processor. It's got 2 gigabytes of onboard RAM. It's got a 1280 by 720, which is what, HD, not full HD, but HD.
720p. Yeah.
Yeah, 294 pixels per inch, 5-inch display. It's an amazing display. I think you agree on that, right?
Yeah, it's honestly one of the best displays I've seen on a mobile device, but we'll get back to that.
Yeah, it's got 16 gigabytes of onboard storage. It's got a very conveniently accessible micro SD slot for expansion. It's got mini HDMI output, so you can use it with your TV.
It's got streaming if you've got a certain kind of NVIDIA graphics card in your PC, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. If you got Kepler graphics in your PC, which is, I think, the GeForce, I forget what, like a GTX. Yeah, it can stream games over your local Wi-Fi, not remotely.
And, of course, there is that price tag, $299.
Yeah.
Which is it's a little steep. But you seem to think that it's well worth the price.
I do. Well, if you look at, like, it's pricey, like, what's the 3DS? 3DS is, do you know? Off the top of
it's like $199, yeah.
Right, and the Vita, they just announced today. Yeah. So it's more expensive by $100 than any of the competing products on the market. If you can, some people might not even agree that they compete, but I definitely do. But I think you get so much more for it. Like, think about the price of I don't know, an iPod Touch, right? It's comparable to that kind of device, and it can do so much more than your standard gaming console. And it's a great gaming console besides that.
See, I've been very skeptical about the Shield ever since it was first announced. And now, after having picked one up to play with, I'm not convinced. I don't get the appeal. I don't understand why you love this thing as much as you do.
Oh, you're such a terrible person. It's because you haven't had time to fall in love with it, I think. I don't know.
Okay, back up. What do you love about it?
Well, I like the games. Like, it ships with some games, and they show the hardware off pretty well. Like Sonic the Hedgehog,
Sonic 4 Episode 2 or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, which is where Sega finally realized, like, oh, wait, why bother pretending that we don't just, the first ones weren't the best, right? And they've just made them again, but with new content. And that's awesome on here. There's like some expandable or explodable, I forget what it's called, explodable
rearm. The other preloaded game.
Yeah, and it's good too. It's like a dual stick shooter. And when you're playing a dual stick shooter on there, you're like, oh wait, it helps to actually have sticks on a device instead of a touchscreen, right? And I think most of what was really impressive about it is just how much better, like, people have been adapting to the touchscreen controls, and developers have been making games designed for that. But then when you get on this, you're like, oh wait, no, this is way better. It was always way better. Let's stop pretending that any other control scheme has anything on this and go back to hardware control, right?
And I think we can both agree the hardware of the Shield is actually really impressive. The fit and the finish is first rate, and NVIDIA's done a really good job of putting all of this stuff together in a package that just makes sense. But my problem is, and this is, I imagine is the case for a lot of people, is that there's nothing on it that I want to play.
Oh, what are you looking at? You're looking at the store, right? The Shield store?
I'm looking at the NVIDIA store plus the Google Play Store. And it's a pretty big issue with Android in general, too. There are some good games, but by and large, they're things that I would not want to waste my time playing.
See, I would argue that's true of the Vita, and I think even more so. Like, I don't know. And the 3DS, I sold my 3DS before the new Pokemon games came out,
which was foolish.
I will eternally regret. But there wasn't anything on there that was exciting to me, right? And with Android, at least you've got a highly motivated community of like so many developers that are focusing on mobile in general, like for iOS and Android, for both those platforms. I think way more than would be focusing on either the Vita or the 3DS. And you've got a huge user base to sustain it. Like, it doesn't matter if the Shield itself sells a lot, which apparently it is selling a lot. You've got the entire Android community backing it up. Like, if people are building games for Android users and they just put in hardware controller support, which is like a native Android SDK thing, I'm pretty sure, then you're set. You've got games, right? That's
Which is great down the line. But if you're thinking about picking one up now, you're not looking to it.
Because then you can play emulators and play all your old favorite Nintendo games, and it's awesome, and that will occupy your time.
So we have to address the elephant in the room. Emulation is something that people do. We both do it. But it seems like the argument...
Only for games we own already.
Of course, of course.
But it seems like the argument you're making to me is that the games that are worth playing on the Nvidia Shield are games that were released years and years ago and are being brought to the Shield via emulation.
For now, I think that's probably true. There's a few that have been ported natively too, like Grand Theft Auto Vice City, which is fantastic.
That's a good game, sure.
Grand Theft Auto 3, the Final Fantasies. There's a lot of examples, right? But yeah, I think a lot of the content is that, and then some of the content is beginning to show promise on the other side, and I think EA is devoting a lot of money to their mobile strategy. Like, there's a lot of money being put into development, so I think that's not going to be a problem for very much longer, if that's your big problem with it.
All right, so, Daryl, do you give it a fly or a die?
Fly, 100% fly. Soaring high above the mountains.
I could see myself possibly giving this thing a fly in a couple months to a year when the Android sort of gaming community picks up the slack for what's available.
But now we just watch Hulu on it. Use it for Netflix.
What? No, I've got like 4 tablets. People would rather buy a Nexus 7 and use that for Netflix.
I'd much rather buy this than a Nexus 7.
That's because you are a fool, Daryl.
Well, all right.
I give this thing a die for now. Perhaps we'll revisit it, but I don't think it's at the point where it's worth spending $299 on. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. This has been Fly or Die. I'm Chris Velasco.
I'm Daryl Etherington.
And we'll see you next time.